I'm Ester, and I'm working with the EU project ONEforest. I'm doing my PhD in my second year right now, and my supervisor is Camilla Widmark. We are doing this study together, and we are situated in the far north of Sweden, in Umeå. So we are outside. It's a lot of snow at the moment, so that might give you a hint of where we are in the world. And besides snow, there's also a lot of forests up here. So being able to work with forests and issues concerning forests is really nice. And this study that I'm going to present today is it's really, I want to say, work in progress, because we have not done all of the analysis that we are planning to do yet, but still, as just in this sort of descriptive version of what we did in the survey, I think it's quite interesting to present also at this stage. So we're looking at stated preferences on forest ecosystem services. And just to start off with, I mean, of course, you probably all know this, but what's the definition of forest ecosystem services? Basically, you can describe it as benefits that people obtain from ecosystems, both direct and indirect contributions to human well-being. And to this picture in the right, which I actually took, it's even further up north in Sweden. It's from Lapland. We can see clearly that there are a lot of ecosystem services represented here. We have, of course, the recreational value. It's easy to walk around, looking at the view and walking around these trees. And we also have the service of carbon sequestration. You see the green needles. They are capturing carbon and giving off oxygen to the air. And we also might not be might not be the first thing you think about when looking at this picture, but there's also the function of erosion control, because you see that there's a slope back here and the roots of these trees are capturing the structure of the ground, making it stay like it is, like a hill. So why is this relevant to look at? Well, maybe you are the persons that I least need to motivate this for. But of course, forests are a big topic when it comes to policy making, and due to like the big issue with climate change mitigation and also like biodiversity loss and people's well-being. So it's very relevant to learn more about the interaction between people and forest ecosystem services to be able to make policies that are well-functioning of meeting all of the needs that we have today, but still making sure that they are present for coming generations. In 2005, there was the Millennium Assessment, and they exemplified and divided the forest ecosystem services into 4 different groups, which I think is rather useful in learning about. We have the provisioning services that maybe were really present in the previous presentation. We have the sort of products that we're getting from them that we can extract from the forest. We have timber, for example, and pulp and paper. We have fibers, lots of biomass things that we can take out. And then we have the regulating group of services, which is regulating the climate, for example. So the carbon sequestration, we have the flood control, and as I talked a little about the erosion prevention, sort of regulatory services that make sure that the ecosystem is running. And then we have cultural values, like recreation, walking around in the forests and enjoying the forest where they're standing. And then we have the slightly maybe difficult group to to define, it's the supportive services, but mainly it's these services are making sure that the other services can thrive. It's making sure that there's a nutrient cycle, water cycle, soil formation, and stuff like that. And looking at these groups, there's obviously when we try to like value what's valuable to us, we can clearly see like that all of the groups are of high value to us as humans, but maybe like it's the provisioning services that are marketed and that we can more easily put a monetary value to. But when making policy, you have to consider all of the ecosystem services that are valuable to people, even though that it's not valued in a way that they are marketed and have a monetary value. So we are looking a bit into this, and so to learn a bit more about how people think about the ecosystem services, we made a survey, and this is the results of the survey. So we chose to state the different ecosystem services as they are defined in the Millennium Assessment. We modified them a little just to make sure that they were easy to make a survey and formulate questions from. But we basically asked, what are the most important ecosystem services for you personally? And we can see here that clean air and clean water is by far the service that most people answered were most important, which is very interesting because it's contained in the regulating group of the services, and it's not really on the market. It's not like you go and buy 1 kilo of fresh air in the supermarket. But clearly it is of high importance to people. So it's interesting digging a little deeper in what that can mean for policymaking, and also why people are, what's the drivers behind, what are the mechanisms behind these answers. But before going more into the results, I just want to back up a little and say something about who are the people answering this survey. So we have 4,000 respondents in online survey panels, and they come from 4 different European regions. And these regions are case study regions chosen by the bigger project of ONEforest. So the basic idea was that these regions would represent the different types of forests that we have in Europe, so that we would make sure that all different types of forests were represented. So we have in the north here, we have a case study region of the whole country of Estonia, which are supposed to represent the hemiboreal and boreal forests. So there's a lot of spruce and pine up there, and a lot of focus on wood production. Then we have Switzerland down here, representing the alpine forests, so characterized by high elevation and stuff like that. And then we have down here in the south, we have the case study region of Catalonia, which are representing the Mediterranean forests, quite different from the boreal up here. So it's interesting to learn the differences. And then the last case study region is made up by 2 regions in Germany. It's Hessen and Thüringen, and they are together one case study region representing the continental or sort of mid-European forests. So these were the respondents, and we made sure that the respondents also were proportional to the obvious demographics, like 50-50 men and women, and there were a lot of different age groups represented, and a lot of different income level and education levels. So we think we have a quite good representation from people in general in these regions. And looking a bit more into were there any difference between these regions when ranking the forest ecosystem services? Well, yes, as we can see with the clean air and clean water is most important, is most frequently ranked as the highest in all of the regions, actually. So you can see that the answers are quite following each other, but Estonia is really the driving force behind the peak here in ranking clean air and clean water. And then we have, looking at production of timber, for example, we have the difference in Switzerland and Estonia, saying that, yeah, this is important for us, where Germany and Spain might not be so interested in saying that this is important for them. And there are also like obvious cultural differences, like it might be more usual with berry and mushroom picking for recreational values, for example, in Estonia. So that's maybe a driving force behind why the berry and mushroom picking services is highly ranked in Estonia. So it's interesting looking a bit, but as you can see, they're quite similar in the regions, which is interesting to see that there's some likeliness in Europe, looking at this. And we also made a difference in asking what are the most important services for you personally, and then a different question about what's more important service for your region, what makes your region thrive more or less. But these answers to these questions was also quite similar. As you can see, they are following each other quite neatly. We have maybe the value of pollination, biodiversity is slightly of higher importance for people personally rather than the region. And when it comes to public recreation, this is stated as being more important maybe for the region rather than for people personally. So these are little differences. And then looking at, for example, men and women, are they any different in what they find important? And yes, a little difference. So we can see like men are stating the production of timber as slightly of higher importance than women. And when it comes to biodiversity and pollination, we see that women are more likely to answer that that's the most important service. And also the clean air, clean water, women are slightly more represented in saying that that's important. Otherwise, there's, as you can see, there's a lot of similarities in how people answer this. And another question we were interested in learning about is like the conflicts between these ecosystem services. And by conflict, we mean is using one service making it harder to use other services? Like, are they in competition with each other? And basically, it was interesting to know that Spain, Germany, and Switzerland were quite similar in saying that, a lot of people saying that no, there is no obvious conflicts. There's a lot of we can use a lot of services without them making it harder to use other services. But when it comes to Estonia, we see that the provisioning services are in conflict for many of the respondents with the regulating services. And so when we match this answers to another study, parallel study we did with deep interviews of forests stakeholders, like stakeholders in their professional capacity of working somewhere in the forest value chain or something related to the forest in their professional capacity. We saw that it's the production of timber that's mostly in conflict with biodiversity and soil erosion. That is the driving force between when people experience the conflict between these groups. All right, so these were a bit of what we looked at, but there are more analysis to come, and it's a work in progress. And we would like also to use shadow prices to sort of value them, to put a more exact number of the monetary value of the non-market forest ecosystem services, or at least try to proxy it. And the results would also be tighter linked to the interviews that we did with the stakeholders to sort of get the mechanisms behind why people are answering the way they are. But so it's a work in progress. But this is what I wanted to share with you so far. And that's it. Thank you so much for listening.